Now we have been talking about the Sammaditthi Sutra, and I told you you should read this at home, not once, several times, because it is important to understand Sammaditthi, the right view, which I call the harmonious perspective. We have already pointed out the first one was talking about what is good and what is bad. One important thing that all religions talk about is to teach people how to behave. Because although we are born as human beings, we are also partly animals. And because we are animals, we are carried away by emotions. And when we are carried away by emotions, we begin to come in conflict with other people. And that is why we hurt others, we steal or rob, or we have improper sexual behavior, we tell lies, we use bad language, and we even take intoxicants that make us mad in certain ways. So you see, we have to find a way of controlling this behavior. And all religions are talking about this. So the first thing that what is called the harmonious perspective was to talk about what is good behavior. And the second one is why we should behave in the proper way. Now, most people in some religions, they say why we should behave in a certain way is because God wants you to do it. And God, who created the world, has given laws. And if you don't behave in that way, you will be punished by this God. That is one way of saying it in some religions. But there is another way of saying it, and that is what is called the idea of karma and rebirth. It's not due to some supernatural being who has laid down rules, but it is simply that our life is governed by this thing called karma. And because of that, we have to behave in the proper way. Otherwise, we will be getting bad consequences. But here in this list of correct views, The second thing is not about karma and rebirth. Why is that? There must be a reason for that. So, why we should behave in a good way is not because of karma and rebirth. That is the important thing. And the real reason is that we all don't know, we all don't like to suffer. We don't like to experience pain, unhappiness. We want to be happy. Not only myself, other people also don't want to be unhappy. Now, if other people don't want to be unhappy, I should not do anything that makes other people unhappy. That means I should not hurt other people. I should not steal. I should not commit adultery. I should not lie. I should not use harsh speech. So, in other words, my behavior is not dependent on karma and rebirth, but on feeling for others. That others are as important as ourselves. And that is why we have to behave in the good way. That is the important thing in Buddhism. Not because someone is going to punish me that I don't harm other people, because I feel love and compassion for others. That others are as important as myself. So this is the most important thing in Buddhism. Now, even in Christianity, you have a statement, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. It's the same thing. So, although Christians are behaving because God said so, but Jesus was a Buddhist. That's why the reason for behaving well is not because God said so, but because we consider others' welfare. We are interested in the welfare of others out of love and compassion. And also, there is this problem that we find in the Sabbasava Sutra. I think we went through this Sabbasava Sutra, and the first part of the Sabbasava Sutra Now this verb, sabbasava, must be understood. Asava means flowing in. Sra, the part of that word, sra, comes from the root sru. Sru is to flow. Asava is to flow in. That means our emotions, although Sigmund Freud taught that emotions come from inside, seeking an outlet, going out, starting from inside, going out. But the Buddha pointed out that emotions are starting from outside and coming in. That is the meaning of asava. So asava really refers to emotions. So the word that I use is influence. Influence means flowing in. Is coming from outside. Influence. Now, one of these asavas or influences is to make us think about our existence. You see, we all think we are existing. That is why there is a kind of philosophy today called existentialism or existential philosophy. What they are pointing out is that all human beings, out of all the other animals, because human being is also a kind of animal, so the human being is the animal that is aware of his own existence. They think I exist. I am here existing. So because the human being is aware of his own existence, what is the meaning of existing? That is very important to understand the meaning of existing. When I say anything exists, now if I take this box here and I say that this is existing, what does it mean? That it occupies space. That means I can measure the space also, the length, breadth and the height. And if I multiply these three things, we say it is the volume. Volume means the space that it occupies. the space that it occupies is the volume. So it is occupying space. Existing means it is occupying space. But that is not all. Because you know, when you go home, someone will put this somewhere else. So it is incorrect to say that it is occupying this amount of space here. Because if you throw it away, it will occupy some other space, not this space here. Or if you just burn this, it will stop occupying any space here. So you see, that means this occupies space only for a certain period. And period means time. So it is not only occupying space, it is also occupying time. And to say that it is occupying time is to say that it has a past, a present, and a future. So occupying time means it has a past, a present, and a future. So if you say that I exist means I have a past, a present, and a future. And what is my past? If I go to talk about the past, the ultimate past is my birth. It is only after I was born that I began to exist. So my existence is based on the birth. If I was not born, do I exist? So the past is the birth. And future? The ultimate future is death. So that is what happens. So we talk about death. That is the end of the existence. And then what happens? In between birth and death, what is there? The baby that was born is not the young man or woman who gets married. And the old man or woman that dies is not the young man or woman that got married. All changed. Every day, new cells are being formed and the whole body is changing. And what we call existence is really the existence of the body. It is the body that we refer to as myself. So we have to think of this properly. And so existence means for the body to exist, there are conditions necessary. If those conditions are not there, that body cannot exist. One condition is you have to take food. You have to eat or take food. But it is not only taking food that is important. You also have to do a thing called breathing. If you don't breathe, you die. And you have to have the proper temperature. If you don't have the proper temperature, you die. So there are many conditions on which that existence lies. So the existence cannot continue if you don't have those conditions. And those conditions are what we spoke about last time, that is called ahara. Ahara literally means food. Now even in our Sinhalese language, if you ask someone, did you take food? Did you eat today? How do you say? Ad ahara gattad. Ahara, they again use the word ahara, means food. Now the important thing is, although we talk about ahara as food, those are simply the things you need for your existence. That means for the existence of the body you need food. But we are not only existing with the body. Existence of the body is a part of it. Normally we think we only need food to eat and then we can exist. But that is not what it is. If the eyes are not working, and if you cannot see, if you cannot hear, if you cannot smell, if you cannot taste, if you cannot touch, are you existing? You see, you may be having a body, but if the senses are not working, you are not really existing. So that is what is called passa ahara. Passa is the activity of the senses. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and even thinking. The thinking part is really what is called mano sanchetana ahara. Mano is the thinking part. Chetana is the emotional part. Even it's not only the thinking, that emotional part is also necessary for us to feel that we are existing. And then we have what is called vijnana ahara. Vijnana is what is called perception and conception. Perception is seeing things, and conception is thinking about things. If the thinking part is not there, and the feeling part is not there, so you see, existence is not just having a body. So this is why we spoke about this existence, and they are all dependent on conditions. Certain conditions are necessary for this existence. But although we are existing, there is another thing that is happening. That is what we are going to talk about today. There is a problem here. We think we are existing and we can be happy, but unfortunately, we cannot be happy. Existence is not a happy thing. Why? We begin to grow old, we begin to fall sick, and we begin to die. Growing old is not a pleasant thing. Falling sick is not a pleasant thing. Dying is not a pleasant thing. So to exist is also these things. But the important thing is, we don't think about those things. We begin to think we want to exist. And we not only want to exist, we ask ourselves or ask other people, did I exist in the past? How did I exist in the past? Will I exist in the future? How will I exist in the future? Am I existing now? If we begin to ask questions about the past, present and future in this way, we will be suffering. That is what the Buddha points out. By thinking of this past, present and future, we are suffering. Because we think we are existing. This is what these existential philosophers have come to realize. They are saying that out of all animals, it is this human being who is aware of his own existence. And if the human being is aware of his own existence, he is also aware that he is going to die, to grow old, fall sick and die. That makes that human being very unhappy. No one likes to grow old. No one likes to fall sick. That is why we have all these hospitals, and they have doctors, they have these people, what is called the home for the aged. Now, those days the children looked after the parents, but today the children don't care about the parents. But the parents look after the children when they are young. But the children don't look after the parents when they are old. So they have to form new things called home for the aged. You see, this is all suffering that we are having. And the hospitals are there. We also have these, what are called courts. Because people are not only just suffering, they are fighting also and creating problems for other people. So to gain control over those things, they have lawyers and high courts. See, the problem is not an easy job. So we have all these problems. So we have to find a solution. What is the cause? So the Buddha points out that we have to find the cause, because all problems can be solved only by finding the cause of the problem. So the cause, according to the Buddha, is what is called tanha. The word has been used by the Buddha called tanha. That's an interesting word. But the Western people, especially the English people who became interested in the teachings of the Buddha, they wanted to translate these words, which were Buddha didn't speak in English. I hope you know that, huh? Because some people think the Buddha spoke in English. Because when I say that the English word that is being used is wrong, and put a different word to translate, they try to fight with me. They say, I am using the wrong words because the words, the tanha is called craving. I say that craving is not the meaning of the word tanha. Tanha means emotion. Because we are carried away by emotions. When we have these senses, 5 senses, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the body, 5 senses. And in these 5 senses, we experience 3 kinds of sensations. A pleasant sensation, unpleasant sensation, and a neutral sensation. The pleasant sensation we like. We like the pleasant sensation. But the unpleasant sensation we don't like. The neutral sensation we don't like or dislike, but we want it to be there. Because it is that neutral sensation that makes us feel that we are existing. When we say, I am existing, what are we referring to? It's the neutral sensation. So we want to exist by experiencing the neutral sensation. But we are attracted to the pleasant sensation. And when we are attracted to the pleasant sensation, we want that. We want the pleasant sensation. But can we have it? We can never have the pleasant sensation all the time. It comes and goes. So our whole life is an effort to get hold of the pleasant sensation and keep it. But we cannot keep it because it goes away. And the unpleasant sensation we don't like. And we try to avoid the unpleasant sensation. So our whole life is an effort to have more and more of the pleasant sensation and avoid the unpleasant sensation altogether. But it can never be achieved. So therefore, we are unhappy all the time because we don't get the pleasant sensation all the time. And we cannot avoid the unpleasant sensation. And the other thing is, the neutral sensation, we want to continue with the neutral sensation, that is, we want to exist. That is also not possible because we are going to die. We don't like to die. So that means, although we are born and we are supposed to be existing, we are existing unhappily. Why? Because we are reacting to these sensations. We react to the pleasant sensation. We react to the unpleasant sensation. We react to the neutral sensation. This reaction is an emotional reaction. That emotional reaction is what the Buddha called tanha. Not just a craving. It is an emotional reaction. Tanha is the emotional reaction. Now, if we don't react emotionally, what will you think we'll be doing? What will we be doing if we don't react? If we don't react, we'll be doing nothing. But the problem is, we cannot be doing nothing. This is the problem. We have to be reacting. Now this is why you keep a child just seated. Will the child be like that, seated? That child will start running about. Because you cannot be without doing anything. But all these people who learn to meditate, what are they trying to do? They try to sit and just do nothing. So that is what the Buddha pointed out. If you want to be happy, you have to stay like one of these statues. That not moving about, doing nothing, that is the meaning of nirvana. Nir means none, vana means shaking. The non-shaking. That is what nirvana is. But that is what people can't do. Not to react emotionally to things. We are all the time reacting emotionally. That reaction itself is the suffering. And in order to understand this, or even to do this, one very important thing to understand is what? Very important thing to understand. If we can understand that, we can just remain without doing anything. What can we understand? We have to understand we don't exist. If we understand that we don't exist, then of course we don't have to do anything if we don't exist. It is because we think we are existing that we are dancing about. So it's very important to understand this. So this is why we have to learn one very important thing. If we are going to do nothing, the first thing is to learn what is called relaxation. We have to learn to relax our body. To relax the body and calm the mind. When the body is properly relaxed and the mind is calmed, there is no happiness greater than that. That is what this Achang Brahm is saying all the time. And that is what Ajahn Chah was also trying to say. And so many teachers who meditate, they are mainly talking about this. This is why Nirvana is called the imperturbable serenity of mind. In the Pali language, it is called Akuppa Cheto Vimukti. Akuppa means the same thing as imperturbable. Imperturbable is a very good word. You should, if you don't know that word, look in the dictionary. Because some people, they don't know English properly. So when I use certain words, they think I am trying to use the wrong kind of word. Perturb means to shake. That is perturbation. Turb. Now we say disturb. What is disturb? That is turb means to shake. To disturb is also to shake. Perturb is also the same thing. Turbulence, we say, speak of a thing called turbulence, means the shaking. Now this is imperturbable. Im means non-shaking. Non-shaking of the mind. Serenity means also a calmness, tranquility of mind. So I am using some beautiful sounding words to refer to nirvana. The imperturbable serenity of mind. So it's very important to read these sutras and understand the sutras. Now here, of course, the words here is on page 148 or 134. 148, I think. The real page number is 48. 138. And there you get the Four Noble Truths, saying, good praying, the bhikkhus delighted and rejoiced. So he is again talking about the Four Noble Truths. These Four Noble Truths are really, what is this thing called suffering? What is the cause of suffering? What is the end of suffering? And what is the way leading to the end of suffering? That is what we were talking about. So the suffering is very simple to understand. It's the disturbance of the mind. That is all the suffering is. And the disturbance of the mind is also the disturbance of the body. Really, there are no two things called mind and body. We only have a body. What we call the mind is itself a disturbance of the body. And to calm the mind is to stop that disturbance. That is what is called tranquility of mind, or the stillness of the mind. So this most important thing is to understand that the tranquility or stillness of the mind. So the main thing is to learn to relax the body, calm the mind, and learn to be still, not to react to things that happen in the world. It's just learning to rest the mind. Okay, I think that's the end of the talk, huh? So you have any questions to ask? If you have understood properly, you don't have any questions to ask. Huh? And from here onwards, the next stage will be to get into the Paticca Samuppada. We begin to talk about the Paticca Samuppada. Paticca Samuppada means how this problem started. How the problem started. And the whole thing started from a state of not knowing anything. That's the problem. Because you are born without knowing anything. It was that same existential philosopher who is called Kierkegaard. He is the person who started asking the question, why was I born? Who made me to be born? Who gave the permission for me to be born? No one asked me whether I want to be born. But then I was born. So this is another question that this person was asking. That is how he started talking about existence. I have come into existence without my permission. No one gave me That's what he was asking. And ultimately his only solution was to take the leap of faith and let God solve the problem. Because the human being is unable to solve the problem. But it was the Buddha who really had to go through a lot of trouble, including fasting and even trying to stop breathing and all kinds of things. And ultimately he found the solution. And the solution was that we don't really exist. We only think we are existing. So if we don't really exist, then what's the problem? There is no problem. We have only created the problem. So this is very important to understand that. So you have to read this sutra. Keep on reading the sutra. That will be your meditation. Unfortunately, this sutra has been translated in the wrong way. So the translation doesn't give out the meaning properly. You know, we discovered a very interesting book. You brought it here. You didn't bring the book, no? It's a very interesting book. It is called How to Become a Buddha in only 5 weeks. If you make the effort, you can become a Buddha in 5 weeks. That's what that book says. And that man is Italian, no? Italian man. And so I thought this must be a madman. And I read the book to find that he is not a madman. He is a great psychologist and psychotherapist. And at the same time, I had already written a book on Buddhist psychotherapy. And that will be coming out very soon. And that is called Buddha the Radical Shrink. The title of the book is Buddha the Radical Shrink. You know, in United States, the psychotherapist is called a shrink. Why is he called a shrink? Those days in United States, the natives of that country, who were called Red Indians, when they fought and killed the enemies, they carried the skull to show that I have killed that man. And not only carried the skull, they were able to shrink that skull with some kind of medicine. So the big skull is made into a small skull. And they make something like a necklace out of it, and so they keep it round. So they were proud to say, I have killed so many people. And that is, they are called the shrink. They shrink the heads of the people. So the psychotherapist is also a person who is able to do the similar thing. Why? Because all these insane people think, I am God, or I am the head of the world, or some sort of thing like that. So to make them sane again is to shrink their head. Yeah. So that is why they are called shrink. The psychotherapist is called a shrink. So I am pointing out that the teaching of the Buddha is also kind of bringing that head down, shrinking the head. So that's why I call the Buddha the radical shrink. And then even that word radical is very interesting word, because I found an article where someone was using that word radical and explaining what it means and coming down to the same point. Radical means that head is being shrunk in that. So the idea of radical shrink conveys the same idea. So I found that I have used the right word to say that Buddha was the radical shrink. Radical really means the root. That the Buddha was able to find the root of all the suffering. And that root is the radical. So by pulling out the root, all suffering comes to an end. That's the important message of the Buddha. So I hope you understood, and you should continue reading this sutra and meditating on the sutra. And now, next one, we'll start talking about the Paticca Samuppada, which is the, now I call it the, it is called the
antecedental concurrence.
Yeah. Oh, I call it the concurrence of a series of antecedents. Antecedents are really, antecedent is what came before something which became the cause of that, or the root. So everything is dependent on conditions. This is the point. So these are series of conditions that point out how it happened. Because of this happened, because of that happened, because of that another thing happened, and so on. It's a series of antecedents. But they all happen at the same time. This is why all the modern electrical things, you just switch on and everything comes up. All the lights come up and all that. Because it happens at the same time. Just as you put on the switch, everything happens at the same time. You don't have to wait. That is the concurrence of the series of antecedents happening at the same time. That's why you can even talk to someone in England from here. You just talk and it is heard there. Because it is all happening at the same time. Time and space are conquered. So I hope everything is okay, and now you are thinking about this and you don't have questions because you have understood. So I hope you'll understand further, and the more you understand, the more you'll be free from suffering. So the important thing is understanding how people have been worshipping power. That's why they ask gods to do things. But here the Buddha points out, what you need is not power, what you need is wisdom. So the Buddhist is a person who takes refuge in wisdom, not taking refuge in power. That's the important thing.